Hello, my sister friends. Welcome to season 6. We're back and we're bringing you meaningful conversations. I can't wait to share with you all the things that we're going to talk about in this season 6. And today's our first episode. So are you ready to have a conversation? Are you ready to talk about empowering the female voice? Let's get louder. Let's raise our voices and make change everywhere we go. Come on, let's have a conversation. Hello, my sister friends. Welcome to the table. This is season 6, Kathy.
Season 6 in the house.
Yes. Woo! Amen. Time has went by. I cannot believe that we are at our 6th season. The grace of God has been good to us.
Yes.
And we've had some amazing conversations and some amazing exchanges. And so this season, we want to continue that trend. We want to talk about things that are important, that are life-changing, that are relevant, and we want to just continue to present to you the heart of Jesus Christ on these episodes. And so I've got a great table today. Yes, we got some newbies at the tables. And so I want to introduce them to you. But before I do, I want to introduce our cup. Our cup for today says, "You are special." So as we start our season 6, I want you to know that you are special. There's no one else like you. You have a unique fingerprint, and I'm glad that we are sister friends. Yes.
Right.
Yes. Each of these ladies are unique in their own way. So we just want to remind you of how special you are.
Yes.
All right, we're going to get ready to have a conversation. This is our first episode of our season 6. And take a minute and share, invite a friend to join the conversation. If you're listening on our podcast, thank you for being a part of our podcast family here at Sister Friends. I wanted to start this season, Kathy, and I wanted to start it by talking about empowering the female voice. And you might say, empowering the female voice, do we even need to do that? And well, in my world, I would say no, because my voice is loud.
Yes.
And I have people that hear me, and I already feel empowered.
Yes.
But women empower women.
Yes.
And that should be our motto. Empowered women empower women.
And we're not talking about anti-men.
Right, no, absolutely
That's not what we're talking about.
Absolutely not.
Just to lift a sister up.
Come on, lift a sister up. Yes, that's what we're going to be talking about. And so I have some amazing ladies sitting here at the table, and I want to introduce you to them. So Miss Jaquithia Prejean. Yes, all the way from Lafayette, Louisiana. Jaquithia, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm an educator. I teach science.
Yes.
Also an entrepreneur, business owner. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. You are a school teacher.
I'm a teacher.
In the science subject.
Right.
And you said you're an entrepreneur.
Yes.
And an entrepreneur of what? Tell me. I know you do multiple things.
I do. Health and wellness.
Yes.
Also getting ready to publish a book that helps with the wellness of our mind called
Absolutely.
Reset.
Reset. Okay. Tell me a little bit about Reset. What is Reset? See it on your shirt.
Yeah, Reset is, it's a journey, as I like to say. But Reset means reevaluating everything so everything thrives.
Reevaluate everything.
Everything.
So everything thrives. I love that.
Right. And so basically, like I said, Reset is a journey. When I say everything, it's not to be overwhelmed with everything, but at certain parts of our life, we need to look at everything and say, I need to do this, and maybe 3 things, and just kind of reset it. And so make us thrive, because that's the point.
Absolutely.
That we just not survive, but we thrive.
Right.
We're at our best.
That's
All
good.
right. I'm excited to get this new literary work from Jakeithia. Yes. All right. And now we have at the table with us for the very first time, Miss Fallon Little.
Yes, yeah.
Yes, Fallon.
So, yeah, a little bit about me. I'm in the Air Force. I fly planes from San Antonio, Texas originally. And just God's brought me on an awesome journey just throughout that. And he's, taught me a lot. So really glad to hopefully share a lot of that today. So.
Yes, absolutely. So she flies planes. She flies planes. So what kind of planes do you fly?
Yeah, so I fly the B-52.
What?
It's a big bomber. Yep.
Yeah.
And but initially start out with the DA-20. That's how a lot of people start, in the Air Force, and then flew the T-6 and the T-38. T-38 was probably the most interesting because it's like a small jet, so it goes really fast, and you have to learn quickly.
Yes.
But there's a lot of times in there where God really. Just taught me a lot about trusting in him. So.
Yes. So have you always wanted to be an airplane pilot?
Actually, no. Yeah, for the longest time I didn't. But it was just before, like the weekend before job preferences were due, that I felt God tugging on my heart and just saying, hey, I know you didn't really consider this very much, but it is going to challenge you and make use of everything that I've given you. Your experiences, your personality, your character.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, I'll go do it. So.
Yeah, that's powerful.
Good.
And it's really, listening to Fallon, it brings me to the thought of being just the poster child for empowered women. In the fact that there's somebody that's watching that says, do you really need to empower women? Is that, is that a thing? I really believe that women should be in every sector of society.
Yes.
And I love that you said, God said, have you considered? I love that. You know what I mean? Because you might not have considered yourself, but he considered. And his consideration of you caused you to think and then say, I'm willing to go for the challenge.
Right.
That's powerful. And so really that's what we're talking about today when we talk about empowering the female voice. And Kathy, what are your thoughts about that when I say, empowering the female voice?
It was, when we talked about it earlier, I was like, this is going to be amazing because, like you said, you have a voice. We all have our individual voices, but we are here to lift each other up. And it's not anti-man. And then, I was thinking about, I forget her name, Ruth. She was on Supreme Court. I can't never remember her last name, but she recently passed. But
recently,
what's her name?
Ginsburg?
Yes.
Yeah.
And she said a woman should always have a seat in every room. And I thought that was powerful because we do need to have a voice from our perspective.
Right.
And, you got a lot of people making decisions, but what about the woman's voice? How we feel in each situation. So it's time to empower women and not to say again that men, we're anti-men.
Right. Because empowering women doesn't mean that you're
we feminists.
Right, or that you're anti-male.
Yes.
Or that you're, speaking negative or even replacement of. It's saying, to me, it's saying, like what you said, Fallon, about being considered and given the opportunity to fully be yourself, in a certain area. You know what I mean? And maybe you didn't consider yourself as an airplane pilot, or even hearing you, Jakeithia, saying that you're a school teacher. And in my age demographic growing up, most school teachers that were in science or math were male. And so for you to say, and I'm a science teacher, I'm like, oh, give me some.
And she cute. Yeah. She cute because most of them weren't cute.
Right. So, you're in a sector. Women are always in teaching, but they pretty much put them in certain categories that they're teaching. Right. And so to see females teaching math, teaching science, teaching in gym and sports industry, that's what I mean when I say empower the female voice. That if you can see it, then you can be it. And so making sure that we're seen and just in all sectors of society, so that we can add our unique voice, coming from our unique gender, to that situation. When I think about God, I think about that. That's his desire for us.
Yes.
Is that everything that he's deposited in us, that we put ourselves in a position to release all that he's put in us, so that we don't have any restraints. Jaquita, tell us a little bit about reset and how that fits and incorporates into being all that God's called you to be.
So I think one of the biggest things that I believe that women struggle with is the imposter syndrome.
Okay.
So we find ourselves not being who we authentically are. We tend to compare.
Okay.
We tend to, especially with social media.
Yes.
Well, I'm not as pretty as her. My weave don't look as nice as hers. My wig doesn't look as nice as hers. And so we tend to actually, because I am a scientist as well, because I took the other alternative route to education, but I have a science degree.
Oh.
So what I did, that's very male dominated as well.
Okay.
But what I kind of know a little bit about the brain. So the brain says for women, we have a little space that's a little bit more like I have to compete with somebody else. I have to, kind of overcompensate.
Okay.
Just because I don't feel, like secure in ourselves and our insecurities. Where in the male, they tend to be a little bit more dominant.
Okay.
So I think the imposter syndrome with reset is that with reset, you have to understand who you are authentically, because my reset is not like your reset.
Right.
What I need to reset is not what you need to reset, and I don't need to compare myself to you because I'm authentic. I'm me. I'm all who God called me to be. And so when you're in a reset, you have to dig in a sense, and find out that purpose, that true purpose and a true identity that God has put in you for you. And that I'm not like my sister, but I'm a part of the team.
Yeah.
And my voice matters, and so does yours.
That's
Yeah.
good.
That's
That's good.
That's my take on that one.
I asked my husband, as I was preparing for this segment, I said, what's your definition of an empowered woman? Just picking his brain. And he said, it's the absolute Proverbs 31 woman, tapping into and releasing all the potential that lies within her.
Yes.
A leader, a mother, a wife, daughter, caregiver, motivator, innovator, professional, conqueror. And I think most times when people think of the Proverbs 31 woman, they just think of her singular as far as a homemaker type.
Right.
But she was so much broader than that, as is the female species. You know what I mean? There's just multiple layers. And so I think part of the empowerment is knowing that we're going to change and evolve, and that God's blessed us with time. And so who we were at 15 or 18 and who we were when we were 6 years old, dreaming, playing with Barbie, and to who we are at 50. I mean, we literally evolve into, different people, and then making sure that as we're evolving and as we're changing and as we're growing, that we're doing it as our best selves.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Connected to our thoughts and our passions, and you know what I mean, and our ideas, and not so much. To me, that's what I think of when I say empowering. Is that I'm fully showing up every day for my life.
Yes.
And then not just me, but helping other people. How does that look for you, Fallon? Because I know in the military, when there's a certain part of being in the military that you sign up for, that I have to surrender because this is the government of the United States,
Right. Yeah.
of the Americas.
Right.
And so you give up some things, but then there are some things that you say no. What does that look like?
Right. Well, I guess like in terms of like stepping out every day, I mean, you have to be mentally, emotionally, physically prepared. And so something I was thinking about recently was always being ready.
Oh.
And that's something that we train to. So in the military, we're always practicing, and we're always doing the same things over and over and over again, so that in any situation we have that confidence going into it, if I know how to deal with this because I've seen this before. Even if I don't, I've been in other situations where I'm dealing with something I've never seen before and I still make it through.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's like the same thing spiritually, where it's like pouring into the word, you know, being in prayer. Like that's how I can set myself up to go in and, you know, deal with whatever's going to come to me. So, you know, there are like lots of different things that, you know, I guess I've been presented with and I've had to navigate. Like, is this in line with the Lord and what he wants from me, or is it not? But that can only be done if I'm in that communion with the Lord, you know, and connected to the Holy Spirit. And so that's how I know I can navigate through whatever, you know, presents itself, right? But yeah, I guess I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. No, that's good. That's good. I love the part that what you were saying about the rehearsing and the practicing over and over. The readiness, you know, being ready, you know, and I think of that a lot as a mother. You raise your children individually. Hopefully you do that because they are individuals, you know what I mean? And so, and then if you've got a son and a daughter, you do cater certainly in some areas to what a boy needs versus what a girl needs. But the goal is to teach them and to nurture them in a way that they're ready, that no matter what happens, you know what I mean? And I think sometimes when we're raising our daughters, not all the time, we could be limiting, you know, in the information or in how we're raising them, which makes them feel like an imposter, like you said, once they get out in the world, because you didn't train them to be ready, or you train them to be ready at a deficit versus, you know, just as in their personhood. You know what I'm saying, Kathy?
It's almost like what I said before. We train our women, we raise our girls, but we baby our boys because we know the deficits we have as women. So we want them to be stronger.
Right.
And as you was talking, I know the military culture, worked in the military for years. And every time I see a woman with rank, I would get so happy. It just made me proud when she walked into the room and she had rank, or she was over a squadron or a unit. When you say you was a B-52 and you flew, I just started smiling inside because I'm like, that's the power right there. And I was thinking about the Super Bowl when they were saying these are females flying over B-52, and I went on the internet, Facebook put all the bombers on there, female bombers, and I was like, I ain't see your picture. I should have put your picture. But that power and how it makes you happy when you see another woman thrive. And usually in the military, that's a strange feel because you see all men dominating everything. So when you see a woman come on the scene in the military, it's almost like, woo, there she go, because you don't see a lot of B-52 bombers.
Well, let me ask you, do you think that you don't see it because, what is the reasons why? Do you think it's patriarchal structure, or do you think it's because women haven't just been interested? Or, you know, there could be a variety of reasons, but in your opinion, what would you say?
Right. So I think in general, girls tend to want to work more with, actually, I'll say with the pilot world. I'll say that first. I've seen like girls want to work more with people. Guys want to work more with things. Like in general, that's kind of how it plays out. So I'm totally okay with seeing the amount of women that we have, only because I don't think you should really force anyone to want to do something that they don't want to do. So I think there's that aspect of like, I'm a little possibly different in that I am more attracted to these things that a lot of other women aren't necessarily attracted to it, you know? But then at the same time, I think there isn't that role model of like, hey, there's someone out there that looks like me, you know, more than this other person, and they're doing the thing that I actually am interested in doing. I felt that at UPT, which is undergraduate pilot training. I had this one woman, her name was Major Heidelberg, and she was awesome. She helped me out so much throughout pilot training. Like, she trained me really well. But she's, you know, another woman. She's Hispanic as well. And so I got to fly with her. And the first time I flew with her, I was like, it's no big deal. It's just another woman flying a plane.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I was in there and we had an emergency and she took over and she took it into land. And I saw how she flew and I saw how she handled things and how she even said things. I was like, that's what I want to do. Like she made it more possible because it was like someone who looks like me is doing the thing that I so desperately want to do, and she's just doing it really well.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think there needs to be more of that exposure, and there hasn't been that in the past, but I think they're getting better at it.
Yeah.
So. Yes.
That's good. I love that. You know, I wrote down this saying, you will be too much for some people.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And if that's the case, those aren't your people.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And I think a lot of that has to do, fits into empowering women, because women are very relational. You brought that up. Very relational. And not only just relational, but we're very intuitive, and we pick up on, you know, we have a greater, I would say, sensitivity to atmosphere and moods, and you know what I mean?
Right.
And so, and sometimes because of that, we can self-mute, or we can, you know, misplace it doesn't have to be something that's happening on the outside world. It's something that we do to ourselves, you know what I mean? Because of that, because we're looking for, have you ever been in a situation where you're going into a room and you know, okay, there's nobody there, no one knows me, but when you get to the doorway, you're looking for, who's my people in here? Who's my, you know,
Your
and
tribe.
you know, and it may be someone with a certain shoe or a purse or just the way that they're standing, but you pick it up and you go, okay, I'm gonna start over there, because you're looking for that little comfort. You know what I mean? It's not that you're not sure, but there's a certain level of affirmation that you're looking for. And sometimes I think, now we're just talking, right? Sometimes I think that affirmation can stop us. What are your thoughts?
I think sometimes women, as women, and not all women, we could be catty. And then, like you say, we could step in a place and then we compare ourselves to other women, or what she's wearing or what she's doing, and instead of stepping in the room saying, oh, I'm here, you know, to have a good time and to be empowered. And what I was going to ask you, Jakeithia, in this big science category, what you do, which we say is limited to females, do you have a hard time getting the females to get it? Or they feel like they less than, I'm not smarter than, this is not for women. You know how?
Right. You're talking about as far as educators?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. Because when you have a math science brain, because I've taught math too, it's real logical.
Yes.
And women don't tend to be logical.
Yes.
So you do get it, but I have seen a lot of women that are, you know, in that area as far as education. But when you look on the other part, because like when I was, you know, like in undergraduate school, I would do interns and it was a whole male-dominated field. And so you wouldn't see that at all. And so even sometimes in the classroom, I see that, you know, if I do a lab, the boys are all into it and the girls kind of be like, well, I don't really, you know, they kind of feel like they can't do it because, again, you know, they're more talking, they're more not into the things, but they're more into, you know, relationships.
Yeah.
So you do see that a lot. So when I come with my other perspective, or women come with their other perspective in the science field, it's kind of like, huh? You know, because I tend to look at things sometimes a little bit different.
Even if they see you, they're like, oh, we got a female science teacher. You know, you like that. And
they add on the black too.
And you empowerment to them. You like, we could really do this if we really wanted to.
Right. And that's what I tell my students. I said, you know, because I want to be, you know, I want to be a cosmetologist. And they tend to, like you said, go towards the, you know, the female dominated fields. And so a lot of times I share with them my story, you know, that I've always wanted to be an educator, but I just kind of ran away from it. And then I, you know, like you said, God just pull you back to where you need to be. But, you know, it's just, like you said, that empowerment too, because I can even speak to not just the women, but the young girls to tell them, hey, you know, you can be the cosmetologist, but if you want to be an engineer, you can be an engineer.
Right.
If you want to be a physicist, you can be a physicist. If you want to be a chemist, you can be a chemist. And so I share with them, you know, because, you know, I'm in a field where my undergrad degree is like, huh? I have a physics degree. What am I in
Well, let me
chemistry?
ask you
So you
this.
don't see that a lot. So the kids are like, oh, wow. And so you just kind of empower that they could do that. You can do it.
How did you break through in a male dominated space? You know, what were some of the strategies that you use? Because sometimes what happens is you can either get your breakthrough and learn how to, navigate through that successfully, or you can become, like we talked about earlier, anti.
Right.
Yes.
And so you can become angry, or you can have trauma because you've had to, navigate in all male circles that weren't friendly or that weren't affirming.
Right.
And so people don't realize that they could spend years, doing something and then realize later, this traumatized me, and then you can't figure out why you can't find a boyfriend or a husband, or that you mistreat your male children or your brothers because, I've been fighting all my life, Harpo. You know what I'm saying? So how did you navigate?
The first thing that came to my mind when you said this is that I have to keep speaking.
Yes.
And not just with my voice, but with who I am and what I do.
Yes.
When you were talking, I thought about a time. Can I tell a story? Okay. When I took a break from the classroom and I went and I was in a lab, and it was like for like Department of Transportation. So we were in there, we were doing samples and working with dirt and all that. And it was like one female lady in there, and I was like the other one. And they were like measuring things, and I'm telling them, like, that's not how you measure things. And they were looking at me like, we've been doing this the same time the whole way. And I'm thinking, like, but I'm just, it's like you speak, but you don't have to speak and be, I don't want to say ugly, but with the confidence. Like, I'm not trying to, just like make it condescending to you, but I'm really just trying to help you out.
Right.
And so they took it a little offensively. And then I even had one person they took what I said and twisted it and then said I didn't do something. And so it could have traumatized me, but I knew that wasn't my field. So I said, well, let me go back to where I need to be. And so another thing that I feel like, if you are in that male-dominated field, you have to know that that's where you belong.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's where you belong. Even though I was the second woman, the only woman, or two women in there. She was Caucasian, I was African American, and that plays a big deal, especially where I'm from in Lafayette. We tend to be, that colorism, racism stuff. But I knew that I belonged there for that time.
Okay.
I knew that science was my love, and so I don't shy away from it. But then I took it, and now I'm in a more female-dominated field. But, as educators, but you still get that competition, that intimidation. You still get that as well.
But you know that you are female. Sometimes what happens, oftentimes when a woman step into a male-dominated occupation or whatever, we become male because we got to act like we got to rule over them, or I'm the boss. Or even in preaching. Some women, they feel like we got to preach like men. And when you get a woman that will stand in the pulpit and be graceful and share the word,
and humble,
and then people are like, oh, she boring. But see, because they compare to that, you can't be graceful. I got to be a man in the pulpit. I got to be a man in this. I got to have that takeover, male-dominated persona to survive.
Right.
Yeah. Let me ask you ladies this question. This is a great conversation. Do you think that people misrepresent God when it comes to his thoughts about women? Because especially right now, because everything is so anti-patriarchal, and so they give God a bad rap, in my opinion. Because I'm like, hello. I mean, he used women at every stage of his story, every stage of redemption. They were powerful women, empowered women, unseen women. I mean, he couldn't even get into the earth realm without a woman. He needed a womb. He needed a woman. So to talk about him as if he's, anti-woman, or he's, he's muted the female voice, to me speaks more to the ignorance of, you don't really know your Bible. You couldn't really know your Bible.
God.
You know what I mean? What are y'all's thoughts about that? What are your thoughts, Phyllis?
Right. I think even with Paul, writing about marriage and the structure of the family, that what he was talking about, especially in that time, was actually more revolutionary for women. Because at the time, women were treated way worse than they are now.
Yeah.
And so to say to a man that you should take care of your wife as you would take care of your body, and respect her and all these things, like that's actually more contrary to the world at that time, more than you would think. So there's that aspect. I think also, the world can see that same sort of passage and say, hey, that's demeaning to women. But I think that comes along with just a misunderstanding of what marriage is and what it's supposed to represent and what it's supposed to teach us.
Right.
But then you read the rest of the scriptures and you see that God literally entrusted the most important part of the gospel, the resurrection, with women. And then, Jesus to talk to the Samaritan woman was such a no-go at that time.
Right.
But, he chose to do that as well. And so something I was thinking about too, as y'all were talking, was I guess the biggest thing for me in my life is just following what God has called me to do. Right. So if that's to be a pilot in the military, then that's what he's calling me to do. And so it's not really paying attention to the world and what it's telling me that I should do. But it's just really listening to what God is calling me to do.
That's good.
I was going to say that earlier because that's where the true empowerment comes from. That, you just be who God called you to be.
Right.
And I wanted to be a teacher at 3, but I didn't become a teacher until I was 28.
Because
I kept running from the voice of God, and so I know that, the empowerment comes from his voice as well. And I think that I was thinking as well that a lot of why people don't give women their props or feel like God has I think it's a cultural thing.
Okay.
Because I look back at women 50 years ago versus now. I think about, I have, we're more educated, we're more out in the business field, we're more seen. And then I think back 50 years ago with my grandmother, she didn't know how to drive. She didn't have she just stayed home. She cooked and she cleaned and she never really worked. My grandfather he had a business. He taught his kids and his grandkids. And so it's the culture.
Right.
And so I think that from that perspective, I think we're still kind of stuck sometimes in the culture of 50 years ago, that we think that women are not important to God.
Right.
But that we've always been important to God.
Always. I love that. I love that.
I mean, I think I love the story of Esther. I mean, God could have raised up Mordecai. I mean, he could have just raised somebody and say, hey, we're going to say the Jews' story didn't have to go that way. You know what I mean? But he raised up Esther for such a time as this. And, I think about Deborah in the Bible. I think about the deliverers, the judges. And I mean, that's exciting because you see not only biblically, those are old stories, but of course they are very relevant to us now.
Absolutely.
But, we see women in the workplace and we see women in politics and we see women in the military. And I think that's important because we're able to look up to them as well.
Right.
And know that that had to be God. Put them there. That had to be God. Like what you said, what was the lady that passed away? That had to be God.
Yeah, Ruth. Yeah.
I mean, she was there with all male dominated. That had to be God.
Yeah.
So you have to, God shows his wonders through women as well.
Yes. Well, as you can see, women's voices are being raised. They're being empowered. They're doing unprecedented things in the earth, and God's for it, and God backs it. Yes. And so I want to say to you, reevaluate everything so everything thrives, and find someone else that you can take with you on your journey. Because if we can see it, we can be it. Yes. Thank you for joining us for season 6. God bless you. Thank you. Thank you for being a part of this monumental season 6, episode 1. It was a great conversation with Catherine, Fallon, and Jakethia. We want to continue to raise our voices, raise female voices. Let's empower each other. If we can see it, we can be it. Be sure to follow us across all of our social media platforms. And don't forget, Something to Sip On is next. Now, this is something to sip on. I'm going to say that when you are being authentically your true self, that's when you're most empowered. That's when you're the loudest, is when you're being your authentic self. Let's practice that. Let's be that. Kathy, what are you sipping on?
I'm going to say, whatever God has empowered you to do, reach back and help someone else out. Don't be a lone ranger. We are here to help each other. So empower other women to greatness.
Absolutely. Fallon, what are you sipping on this week?
Yeah, so I'm going to reference a Bible verse, Luke 12:48. And it's basically, to whom much is given, much is expected. And so this week, think about what God has given you and all the ways that, he expects you to use that in your life.
All right, Ms. Jakeithia?
I want to say that you are intelligent and you are brilliant, but I want you to own up to it.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Yes.
That's right. That's good.
All right. So, sister friend, own it. You're special. You're powerful. Lift your voice.